everyone, welcome to Reading Through the Generations. I'm here with my winter 2023 wrap-up video. I read such wonderful books this past winter. I read a total of 11 books, the majority of which were mysteries. My most read author was Alexandra McCall Smith, and I read books 3, 4, and 5 in the #1 Ladies Detective Agency series. The average rating for all the books I read this past winter was 4.5 stars, and there were 2 5-star reads for the entire winter season. Now, Chicky Bean from Chicky Bean Loves Books plays this delightful TBR wrap-up game on her channel, and this is going to be a complete copycat version of that game. I'll leave information to her BookTube channel in the description down below, so please check her out. She makes wonderful content. So what Chicky Bean does is she essentially assigns the books that she's read for the month to a certain prompt. I'm not going to do exactly that. Instead, I'm just going to put all the prompts into a spinner wheel and roll a dice, which will dictate how many prompts I select. And I forgot to film the roll of the dice as well as the spinner wheel. So you'll just have to trust me that I got a 7. So I'll have to answer 7 prompts. And prompt 1 was which book had the best setting. That would be The Marshlands off the coast of North Carolina and Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. It was as though the setting was its own character, and I was just blown away by the nature descriptions in this book. And it essentially was actually what made me enjoy reading the book most of all. Prompt 2 was which book would you reread, recommend, and unhaul? A book I plan to reread is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. You know the feeling when a book enters your life at the perfect time? Well, that was what this book was to me. I could not put it down. I actually had to read it during the day so it wouldn't interrupt my nighttime sleep. We basically follow a whole cast of characters whose lives revolve around this mysterious Le Cirque des Rêves, the Circus of Dreams, and there are 2 competitive forces involved in the story. So we have 2 protagonists whose influence on the circus is more than what it appears to be on the surface, and it was so much fun. A book I'd recommend is My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier, and holy smokes, this book. If you are looking for a book to buddy read with a pal, or need a book contender for a book club read, I highly recommend choosing this book because there's so much to discuss and analyze in this novel. It was absolutely fascinating, just the psychology of it all. It explores how our preconceptions and our misconceptions inform the world around us and our relationships. I highly recommend this book. And then none of the books I read this season, I wouldn't unhaul any of the books that I read. It was a really fantastic reading season this past winter, and I genuinely really enjoyed all the books I read. The next prompt I got was a yearbook superlative for best couple. And that would be Mabel and Jack from The Snow Child by Eowyn and Ivey. They go through absolute hell in this book, and the fact that their marriage survives and thrives is just so inspiring, and I love them so much, and I was rooting for them the whole book. If you love books set in the Alaskan wilderness and or historical fiction with just a touch of magical realism, you need to read this book. We read this for my family's book club, and we had such a wonderful discussion about this novel. Prompt 4 was which character did you relate to the least? And that would be Philip Ashley from My Cousin Rachel. He's lived such a sheltered existence, and he's very young and inexperienced when it comes to the world at large. He's extremely misogynistic and prejudiced, so that would be my answer to that prompt. Best nonfiction goes to Around the World in 80 Trees by Jonathan Drori. Thank you, Cece, for this wonderful book. I absolutely loved every page, and I learned so much about trees, new trees that I had never heard of before. Like, who knew there was such a thing as a strawberry tree? It was just, I loved the reading experience of this book, and highly recommend it. For another yearbook superlative, most likely to succeed, that goes to Ada in the Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. Ada, she's just such an intelligent and curious child that I would find it hard to believe that she wouldn't succeed in her life. When we first meet her, she's in grief for her mother who has committed suicide, and with the help of her auntie Miriam, Ada's able to find an outlet for her grief and her anger. Miriam's also the connection to Ada's Cyprus roots that were so heavily absent in Ada's life because neither of her parents really talked about their past. And finally, for prompt 7, which book had the best supporting character? That would be Brother Sasha in The Winter of the Witch by Katherine Arden. Oh man, we really see what Sasha is made of in this final installment of the Winter Night trilogy, and I cried at the end of the series. It was so beautifully done, and if you haven't read this yet, please do. It's fantastic, and I hardly ever read books in a series. So that's my winter wrap up. Thanks so much for joining me today. Until next time, bye-bye.